very similar to how you guys would do an onboarding week at HQ. Like staff come down here so they can see the culture that's built here and like what VALD is truly, because I didn't know this until I was at VALCon 2 years ago, but like you think it's sports science technology, you test it, and then you come here and it's just like this magical place, right? And then like literally you feel amazing when you're here and you just see what Lori and Sam and Chris have built and the amazing people that are here, and you want to be able to replicate that type of stuff within your own business.
We're back. Welcome to VALDCAST. Tay, how's it going?
I'm tired, but I'm excited to be here.
You're just off a flight?
Yeah.
So we're in Brisbane. We're in VALD HQ for the people that aren't watching. It's VALDCon, which is always
The best time.
the best time. This is your second VALDCon?
Second VALCon, yeah.
Okay, well, hopefully it lives up to the previous one.
I think it will.
Yeah.
I think it will.
It should be good. Should be good. So, Tay, great to have you here. We're going to make it pretty informal, pretty easy going. But you're also a second-time VALDCAST guest. The first time was with Trav, your business partner, talking about ORKA broadly. So I'm kind of hoping for this episode we'll dive into some of the more Taylor stuff. So you've got two different arms of the business with Rehab and Performance. And am I right in saying Performance is what you're covering?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we'll probably dive into that a bit more. And I know there's going to be another episode with Trav talking to Dylan about the early stage of Rehab and the stuff that he really puts a stamp on. So without spinning our tires, let's just jump into it.
Let's dive in. We'll see how I do. Well, I want to make sure jet lag.
I want to make sure you stay awake. So I'll make sure my questions are engaging. We should be fine.
No, we're good. We're coffeed up.
Yeah, 100%. So let's just start broad without touching on ORKA, RTP, the return to performance pathway. Like, how have you seen it evolve over probably the last 2 decades? Because it's constantly evolving, and trying to keep up with it is the hard part. But from your experience in the industry, what have been the key changes that you've seen?
I think one of the biggest ones for me is just the evolution of how people are thinking more holistically and trying to balance how we get from point A to point B. And it's not just this simple linear pathway, but also navigating the entire athlete for me is where I've seen the biggest change. And an example of that would be, rarely do we see an ACL athlete at mid-stage going through a return to run and say, okay, you're just going to run for 3 minutes and walk for 3 minutes. Like, it's just not the case. And then obviously the objective side of it, of being able to collect meaningful data that we can utilize and drive rehab outcomes with our data, knowing that we're going in the right direction, and pressure testing if we're doing it right. So I think for me, the evolution of how the systems have evolved has been a really big turning point. And then the second piece obviously is just going to be how we utilize our data now in rehab, which is incredible. It gives you a sense of comfort, and it gives you an idea of where you're going and ultimately where you need to go, which is important. It's like a compass.
Yeah, I think like the accountability piece is huge there as well, because coming from professional sport all the way down to like your industry in the private sector, you kind of need to have a bit of a safety net to show that I did my very best with this athlete. I have a duty of care towards them, of course, and it may not reflect on the results on the pitch when you get back to performance, but we've done everything that we can. And maybe you started at a certain position, we've exceeded what your 100% used to be, and getting you back. So I think that's
but also like, how crazy is it now that we can utilize the same tech that the professional organizations that weren't attainable for so many years, and you go from just doing a single leg squat test, and now we have everything. So there really is no excuse for you not to be able to nail a rehab and guide it, which I think is really important.
100%. So bring it to ORKA now. Let's talk about the transition. And the transition it's not really a talking point yet, because I think a lot of places are either still siloed into rehab or performance. You guys have a really collaborative approach where Travis' team will take the rehab early, and then they'll eventually get it to a stage where the performance team can take over. Maybe I'm mincing my words there, but talk to me about how you manage that transition. How do you know when someone is ready to come from the rehabilitation side into the performance side, whether that's across a rehab or whether that is with your healthy athletes?
It's a really difficult topic, and it's one that we've struggled with for many years on trying to figure out what is the right balance to be able to take somebody from the acute stages, mid-stage, end-stage return to sport. And I think what's really important for us at ORKA is that our whole team has an understanding. So the performance side has an understanding of what's going on in the acute piece, and then the physios also have an understanding on the performance side. So the physios can take them the full way if they need to, but where we find the sweet spot is the physio will get them to a point that they meet some criteria that we deem that they're ready to go into our performance pathway. They would go into the OPP. At that point, there would be a meeting between the physio and the performance coach, and they would discuss what that transition is going to look like. The piece that people forget about is that the relationships that get built between the client and the athlete and their tending physiotherapist, a transition can sometimes be really, really hard for them because they've been with that physio for so many months, going through some difficult times. So we found if we just say cut and dry at 6 months, you're going to transition, it doesn't always work out well because you have this change at guard, and the athlete sometimes feels like I'm going into the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen. And they lose that like safety blanket. And so we really try to make sure that they're integrated from the start. So my expectation with my team and the performance coaches is that they're going and introducing themselves to the rehabbing athletes on the floor early. You see them in the gym, you go talk to them, you learn about their injury. You start making touch points, connect points, so that when that time comes, they're a little bit more comfortable with you. It's not just you're transitioning to a stranger. And then that piece for us just comes down to communication on the back end. So they transition, and the idea is that they will still have their tending physiotherapist that they can see, whether it's session by session, maybe once a month, and we'll identify any red flags, rehab red flags that we have, and then those will get past the performance coach for us to make changes in programming. So they still have that entire team from start to finish. But I would just say the weight of the role changes a little bit, and the performance team is able to carve out the more complex things of like your COD, your max velo, like all that stuff.
A rehab red flag, what would that look like?
So that might be they transition it at 6 months post-op, and in the first block they get some swelling, some unexpected swelling. And it's like, okay, that's probably not what we want. So we're going to bring physio back in and figure out maybe why that happened and then program accordingly to change it. So just little things that might be hiccups along the road, an unexpected pain, maybe they're feeling something in their foot now. And it just keeps that physio in the loop within that program as well.
And how do you communicate with the athlete as well? Like, because I know they come to you for sessions and they come to you for treatments and so on, but when they go away, there's the potentially 20 hours of the day that you don't get to see them and get to understand what they're doing. Do they have anything in place to communicate with you, or what does that look like?
Yeah, so I mean, we have through Team Builder, we have the ability for the athletes to reach out. And I mean, I'm really bad for this and I should stop doing this, but I give them my number.
Okay.
And they will message me at all hours. But at the end of the day, I always say the ones that are complex and they need more regular touch points, like I'm okay with it. Like if you got to message me and let me know what's going on. And I think when you have that base level of communication as well, you're able to manage what they need a little bit better because you're more in tune with their day to day and you can switch the variables around. And, example being one of my athletes had a really difficult life incident, had to travel back home and wasn't going to be in the gym, had to be there with his family and wasn't going to be there. So we communicated via text on how we can continue moving the needle as best we can with the resources that we have. And it was a week of just texting and trying to figure out what we need to do. So I think that's the big communication piece, is just making sure that they understand that you are there for them.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's massive. There is the human element as well that people just forget about. You don't really learn about that when you're in college. Yeah. You've got the textbook approach of do this, and do this, but you don't learn about everything that could upset that journey. So
it's the center of it. And we say this all the time, like the coaches in ORKA that are the most successful are the ones that are able to have the most meaningful relationship and might not even be talking about the injury. And they, like, time and time again, we always talk about how to win friends and influence people. Like, a book's from the 60s, but it still hangs so true in that the people is the center, and how you communicate and how you make them feel comfortable and ultimately give them that safety blanket that they're going to be okay on that rehab journey. And that starts with you. I say that all the time. It starts with that.
I've had that when I was in sport as well, like working in elite sport. There is this little hierarchy almost where at the start the athletes are there, they're with their group, they're with their positional players and stuff. They look at you and it's like, he's a coach, he's different in many ways. But if you have a real conversation with them, and for me examples come back to like talking about sport at the weekend, talking about the Premier League or talking about music that might be trendy, and they realize, wow, this person is kind of similar to me. He may not be as gifted athletically, which I'm not, but
Yeah.
but like having those human moments, it seems to be the key to a lot of that.
I always say this, is that I think you're doing something right as a coach, as a physio, when you start getting the invites to the weddings. You start getting invites to graduations,
Yeah.
to baby showers, to really, really big moments in these athletes' lives. And when you can see them outside of the gym, you know that there's been a level of impact that you've had on it. And that is really, really special.
Yeah, amazing. That's awesome. Right. Before we go too deep talking about the human element, let's bring it back to VALD and even just objective measurement tech in general. Where does that fit into things? So obviously, like, I've been to ORKA, I've been immersed in it, I've done some of your programs and your courses, and I know exactly what the athlete will see. But if you can touch on it for the listeners, where does technology across the journey, does it change? Is it the same process? So like, is someone going to come in on week 1 and do force X force frame dynamo testing, or how does that look?
Yeah. So for us on the performance side, they come in and we go through what's called a performance plan. So on the performance plan, it basically outlines athlete goals because I think we need to get an understanding of what they want to achieve. And then we go into notes, which is just any background stuff that they've had going on, previous injuries. And then the big section is on the KPIs, which we'll pick from the VALD technology. And we've kind of standardized it based off of our set tests that they come in for a healthy athlete. And from that, we're looking at our knee extension. We're using the Nord board, so ISO 60 Nordic. We're doing hip adduction, abduction. At 60, we might go long lever if there's a history of athletic groin pain. We'll segue into different tests if the previous injuries are showing us that we might need to look at something there. But outside that, fairly standard. And then we're going to go into a squat jump, CMJ, single leg CMJ, drop jump, single leg drop jump, mid thigh pull. So we'll run them through all of those tests on day 1 as part of their like onboarding week. And sometimes we have to split them into 2 depending on the day, but they'll go through all of those tests. And then the expectation for us is at the end of each month, we set up performance testing classes, essentially like time slots. And the athletes, it's expected on them that they book themselves back in for their retest. So every 4 to 5 weeks, they're getting another full round of testing done. And then we're also introducing kind of weekly CMJ jumps for our higher level athletes that are managing volume and fatigue a little bit more. So we set that up, and those athletes know how to do it themselves. So they come in, they set up the iPad, they do their 3 CMJs, and then we'll analyze that across the week. So
sidetrack, you mentioned ISO 60 and force frame at 60. Is there a reason 60 instead of another position, or is that just your process?
That was just like the first run at testing that we had, and I think it's a happy medium for us that we're able to relatively keep it simple, and the athletes tend to do well in that position. But if we start to see things, we're going other places for sure.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. It's a common question that I would get at VALD as well, like which exact position should I do? I think when you're in that position, you can generate force, usually pain-free, depending on the issue, but examples of like hockey, sometimes they move towards ISO 40, 45, those types of positions for hip adduction or abduction. But anyways, that's a sidetrack. Cool. So going through my list here, we've had Carl Goodman on earlier today talking about scaling a business and stuff.
What a guy, by the way.
How good is Carl?
What a guy.
He's an absolute legend. It's his 4th VALDCon as well. Every single VALDCon I've been to, he's been here. So we've got a bit of
he's a vet now, I think.
A bond going, yeah. But we spoke about like scaling business, and we spoke about very specific things to Athletes Authority and Australia. But with ORKA, you've got your own challenges and your own opportunities popping up now as well. So Edmonton is coming up soon. I wanted to touch on that and see what you can share for us and maybe lessons that you've learned so far.
Yeah, man. Scaling a business is so hard. It's the hardest thing I've ever done. The amount of stress that goes into it, of the unknown, and I think that's kind of the joy of the entrepreneurial spirit, is that you're willing to be a little stupid sometimes and take some risks, and hopefully they're calculated enough and you feel like you've got it right. Edmonton was the perfect time for us because we went into a pop-up clinic in Sherwood Park, and the pop-up clinic we took from the retail space just to test the market to see if it would even work. So it was a 2-year lease. Rent was super cheap, and we're like, let's see how this goes. And the guys that we put up there, Brendan and Joey and Jacob, like, they crushed it. So we were pretty comfortable that we could go into a full build. And this full build was the first one that we've done without a project manager. So Trav has been kind of playing project manager up in Edmonton and trying to navigate budgets. We got hit with a $15,000 mezzanine surprise bill. We got hit with a $5,000 HVAC bill. So it just change orders come in, and the biggest one was equipment, which we we sourced from overseas. That's just showed up in a sea can, and Trav and I unloaded the whole sea can. So toughest labor day of my
Made
life.
for good content though. I was watching. I'm glad I wasn't close enough to help, but also following along the journey.
We had a curved treadmill without a load ramp that we were trying to get down, and we were like stuck underneath it, pinned in behind the trailer. So we're lucky. We're lucky no one got hurt on that day. But
Yeah.
no, I think you feel comfortable in these conversations to scale and make the decision to grow when you have the right people. And that for me is you have to change things in your business to make sure that you have the resources to invest in them long term, and not just invest in the short term of like, this is your salary and we obviously want you here long term, but create a vision for them on what that could look like. Is that an equity partner pathway? Is it, they're able to have rights to a region within Alberta or Canada, and actually show that there's a development pathway. And it's the same on the performance side. Like, I want them to see that they can come in as a performance coach, and then they can be a head of strength conditioning. And then who knows, I hope one day we have regional roles that people can manage performance departments. And that's a big passion for me in the strength and conditioning space, is that access to really good jobs and really good careers that you can make a living are slim. Like, we're looking at heads of universities on 40 grand a year.
Yeah.
Canadian dollars.
That's a unique Canadian problem. Like, you go down, below the border, you may get a nicer role, albeit with less job security. It's year on year. You're not too sure where you're going to end up. Your family, you have to relocate and stuff. So considerations for sure. Bring it back to, I guess, like opening the new facility. I'm trying to think about the way to jump into this, but do you think you're going to be able to just replicate what you've done in Calgary, which is your initial facility? Or are there, we always talk about like scaling a business, there's cultural changes depending on where you bring it, and it may be more applicable to people that are moving overseas with their business. But you're going 3 hours up the road of that lonely highway that I've drove too much on. But how do you make the transition from like ORKA Calgary, the flagship, which is so successful, which has the culture, it's got everything ingrained into it? How do you make sure that transfers across, or do you make anything different based off the market that's in Edmonton?
There's a really good quote that I heard from Mark Fisher with Business for Unicorns, and they talked about how your second and third and fourth location might not look like your first. And what he means by that is that your first one is really usually rooted in you having the connections in the community, and you being able to leverage maybe an entire soccer club, which is what we did. And you might not have that in a new community. So you can't just take, and I don't want to call ORKA Calgary a yacht, but in this analogy, you can't just take a yacht and put another yacht in another market and not have those connections. So they use the analogy that you have one yacht and you put speedboats everywhere. And the speedboats are efficient. It might be a smaller scale. And so that's what we're doing with our expansion model, is we're looking at like 2,000, 2,500, maybe 3,000 square feet. Calgary's 6, so it's half the size. We're going to slim down our team training offerings. And the answer to your first question, which I know I'm on a tangent there, but we need to make sure that the people that are up there also have the experience of what it's like to be in Calgary. So that's what we're doing now, is we're building out full training weeks, very similar to how you guys would do an onboarding week at HQ. Like, staff come down here so they can see the culture that's built here and like what VALD is truly. Because I didn't know this until I was at ValCon 2 years ago, but like you think it's sports science technology, you test it, and then you come here and it's just like this magical place, right? And then you feel amazing when you're here, and you just see what Lori and Sam and Chris have built, and the amazing people that are here, and you want to be able to replicate that type of stuff within your own business. So we're creating training weeks where staff can come down and spend a day, 2 days in Calgary and actually go through the full training, and based off of an adult learning model where we have a 70-20-10. I want 70% of it to be experiential. They're on the floor, they're learning, they're coaching, they're running a testing session. So I think that way, when we get people into our facility in Calgary, I think we're going to be able to replicate some culture and be able to have the leadership in every single clinic to make sure that we support our people so they feel that they can contribute to that culture.
Awesome. That's truly amazing. I'm looking forward to following along that journey as well. I know we're going to have a good week here at ValCon, but you're going back into the thick of it with the opening, which is coming up relatively soon. The official opening.
It keeps on getting moved a little bit, but
Yeah.
I think we're going to be aiming into September.
Okay,
That's our goal.
I'm looking forward to following along with that. We're going to bring it to a few kind of, I call them quick fire questions. Sometimes they require a bit more thought, especially if you're just off a 30-hour travel day. So let's jump into 3 here. The first one, and I've asked this to a few people this week already. How do you, like, we know there's objective, we know there's subjective data and feedback from athletes. How do you balance it? And it's not going to be a 50-50 ratio or anything like that, but what's your approach to balancing that? Because both are important, and with the right context.
Yeah. Data is an opportunity for a conversation. I always say that. I say that to our coaches, is that we can't just look at that and say, okay, somebody's down 20%. That's just is what it is. We got to change programming. But now you got to use that and open up a conversation with the athlete and tap into that subjective side. Like, what is going on here? How are we feeling? And you can uncover a lot of stuff. So I think for me, the data gives you an opportunity as a coach to be able to tap into the human side, but ultimately the objective side needs to drive where you're going.
Yeah.
But without the human side and without the opportunity to have those combos and meaningful combos and combos where they trust you, the objective side isn't going to do anything for you. So I think you have to balance the two, where one leads you into a conversation, but you know that the objective piece at the start is what you truly need to leverage to be able to get past it.
And one without the other just doesn't work.
It doesn't.
I appreciate that. Okay, what's one piece of tech you couldn't live without in your role? Maybe more on the performance side as well.
I mean, I always say that the force decks for me. You get so creative on them. They can tell you so much stuff about what an athlete is going through. They can tell you there's just so much stuff you can do with them. I love them. I love it.
Perfect. You're pumped.
Yeah.
Like, I can tell that.
Take them to an island. You're like Wilson with his volleyball. I'd have my force decks.
And they've got a pretty good battery life too. So if you do go to an island, at least you could do some jumps for a while.
Paint some blood hand on it.
Yeah, you should be fine. Final one. Where do you see the future of RTP moving forward in the next 5 years? Because we're slowly getting to this collaborative care model. It's not being done across the board. You guys have, I would say, pioneered it in Canada. So where's the next 5 years? What does that look like for you guys, but also for the industry in general?
This might be a bold claim, and I hope I'm wrong, but I think that there's going to be in the next 5 years a swing where AI steps into these conversations and these roles to support coaches that maybe aren't feeling confident enough. And I think that can be a really slippery slope. I think if we start integrating AI into your decision making, you're now as a coach losing your critical thinking skills to be able to navigate what's truly in front of you, which is a human. So I think that there's going to be a bit of a shift and a swing where AI plays a bigger role in all of this. And I think the ones that are going to be the most successful are the ones that understand that it's just a tool, just like the force decks are, just like any other piece of tech. It's a tool. There's moments to use it, but never forget about your critical thinking skills and your ability to think outside the box to deliver the outcome to your athlete.
Yeah, that's something that concerns me as well. But I feel like it's going to get to the point where, well, hopefully it never does. But if someone just pulled AI away, how many people would be exposed? Got a bit of interference from the presentation going on behind us there, but yeah, like if you just pulled AI away, because at the minute, like I use ChatGPT, I use all these different things,
Much.
It reduces cognitive load. And there's sometimes where you need a bit of a skeleton, and then you can do the work. You can't get the ball rolling yourself.
Yeah.
But it is weirdly tempting to ask it to write a program or ask it to analyze the Vault Hub data, but that's a slippery slope.
I mean, this is a side piece. I know these are rapid fire questions, but you talked about cognitive load, and I think that that's going to be a big danger that we have introducing AI in the day-to-day, is that we are reducing our cognitive load. So what's that going to do to our brain long term?
For sure.
Dementia, Alzheimer's, all those things are now knocking on the door with these researchers because of how much we're reducing our cognitive load. We're taking a 30-pound dumbbell and changing it to a 5. Like, of course, we're going to detrain that capacity. So I think you need to realize the power of it, and it can benefit you a lot in your role, but interact with it, think critically, and still use your brain.
Yeah, 100% agreed there. That was the longest quickfire questions I've ever.
I can never do quickfire. I'm so guilty of
I
just
think I
going
just need to get a new title. It's not the quickfire. It's just like Ryan's round up at the end.
The problem is you're asking too deep of questions.
I know. I'm a deep thinker. I'm a deep guy. Right, wrap it up. Tay, if people want to connect with you and they want to talk or they want to avail of any of your services, where do they find you on socials or email, or what's the contact details?
Yeah. I mean, Instagram's probably where I'm most active and still not active enough, but YYC Strength Coach on Instagram. My email is just taylor@orkaperformance.com. So if anybody wants to reach out via email and has questions, shoot away. I'm not great at replying emails, but I'll do my best.
The toughest part is just getting your surname right, to be honest. Evernden?
Evernden.
Evernden, there we go. Evernden Performance.
Yeah.
Never made it out of the...
Yeah, there's some Vault hoodies with that on it.
100% out, Tay. Thank you so much for jumping on. Hopefully
Thanks
we're
for
gonna
having me.
We're gonna have a great week. I'm looking forward to your presentation, your workshop with the Vault stuff. I think they're gonna benefit massively from it. We've got a few other fun additions that we're gonna sprinkle in throughout the week as well. So
I'm excited.
It's gonna be a good one. And to our listeners, don't forget to like, subscribe to VALDCAST wherever you get your podcasts, YouTube, Spotify, Apple, and we'll be back very soon.